Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Insuring India, a podcast by Digit Insurance. I am your host Sabri Saran. If I ask you what is one of the most precious assets you own, what is going to be your answer? While it may vary from person to person, I am sure many of us are going to say the most expensive or precious asset we own is the home we live in. It is probably one of the biggest purchases we all make in our lives. You might be wondering why I'm suddenly talking about real estate in an insurance podcast. Well, the reason is while the home we live in is one of the most expensive assets we own, we barely do anything to protect it. The adoption of home insurance in India is extremely low. The home insurance penetration in our country is pegged at less than 1%. Floods and cyclones damaging homes, earthquakes destroying the houses, fire incidents burning down buildings, these are all incidents that are quite common in India now. In fact, India is among the most disaster-prone countries in the world. Yet, the awareness surrounding home insurance remains extremely low. For example, see what's happening in Joshimath in Uttarakhand. Land subsidence in the area has led to over 600 houses being evacuated. The story is no different for even major metropolitan cities. We have all seen floods damaging homes in Mumbai, Chennai, and more recently in Bangalore. According to the State of the Climate in Asia 2021 report, loss and damage from floods, storms cost India $7.6 billion in 2021 alone. All this makes me wonder why the topic of home insurance is not talked about as much in India. What does a home insurance offer and why should people consider it? To talk this and more, I have with me today Dilip Baba, Head Commercial and Specialty Lines, Digit Insurance. Dilip, thank you so much for joining us on the Insuring India podcast.
Thanks, Shabri. Happy to be here.
Dilip, I know the concept of home insurance maybe is known to people, but I want to start with the basic today. Can you explain for our listeners what exactly is home insurance?
So, Shabri, basically, like you rightly said, everyone owns a home.
Right.
So it could be an individual apartment or it could be a standalone house on a piece of land.
Right.
Now, having said that, so there are a host of ways in which you can insure your home. So home comes with a lot of aspects. Now, one thing which we all think of generally is, let's say, what if a thief breaks into my home?
Right.
Okay. Now, the loss in terms of property from the home is one, and then you have the mental agony of somebody breaking into your fortress always.
Right.
So, burglary and theft is something which happens in India or let's say anywhere on a day-to-day basis, which generally people can relate to and which people would generally want to insure or rather some way to make good their loss in case it happens.
Right.
So on this front, generally, so things which are most valuable in your home would be, let's say, jewelry sometimes, or your portable equipment like laptops, iPads and things. Now, this is something people relate to immediately because these are things which can be easily carried away and nobody would even know. Now, having said that, there are bigger issues which can affect your property or home as such. So let's say one other thing which everyone would relate to is fire. So mostly in India you would have heard a lot of news events about a gas cylinder bursting or your kitchen going up in fire, and most of the cases there is no human fatality as such, but then it incurs a lot of cost in terms of redoing the kitchen, bringing it back to a functional shape. Now, along with that, your cylinder blowing could also affect a nearby house if you're staying in a multi-story apartment and things like that. Now, a fire in the kitchen could also spread to the rest of the house. Now, it may not only damage the kitchen, it could damage, let's say, your home appliances, your sofas, your dining tables, or any wooden furniture, any false ceilings which you would have put in the house. A lot of things, right? Now, at any point in time, this is sudden and unforeseen. Nobody is expecting a cylinder to blow.
Correct, yeah.
But at any point in time, the amount of loss that this customer would incur because of this happening could be huge. So it's a life savings, and all put together, having to reinstate all your furniture, appliances, and things is going to cost a lot of money.
True.
Now, this is majorly from the scope of the contents which are there in the house. Now, at the same time, having said one is fire. Now, these days, we see a lot of other issues like, let's say, somebody staying on the coast I mean, India has a very long coastline.
Correct.
So houses are built on the coast, or let's say even if it is 25-50 kilometers within the coastline, a threat of a cyclone is very real. So people staying along Chennai or Visakhapatnam would definitely relate to this, or rather West Bengal. So East Coast generally gets a lot of cyclone events. Relatively lesser on the western coastal area. So cyclone today is a very real issue which can damage houses. Now, when you look at India being a tropical country, India is home to a lot of rivers. So rivers crisscross the mainland of India, and across civilizations, cities, even any kind of establishment generally happens alongside the rivers, because easy access to water. So India is a country which does not have much of a dearth of drinking water, so which makes settlements easier when it's closer to the river. Now, having said this, again being a tropical country, we get ample rainfall, and at least during the monsoons.
True.
Now, ample rainfall also means that rivers would surge during a monsoon season, or we definitely as a country we have planned for flood and things like that. There are constructions which prevent the river from flooding and all that. But then we may not be able to exactly predict what happens at any point in the country at any point in time. So there could be localized events, let's say one river flooding at one part in 1 year, and let's say it happens somewhere else in the next year. So flood is a very real scenario, and flood is something which will, not only, it affects in a larger scale compared to a fire hitting one home versus a flood hitting, let's say, hundreds of homes at any point in time. Now, the impact of this is on large number of households. There is a lot of hue and cry. People are, you will have to be evacuated, move away from your home, stay somewhere else. Along with mental agony, you leave everything which is dear to you at the home, move away. Then you will have to come back. When you come back, what is, the extent of damage which would have happened is what you will realize when you come back. Now, how do you make good a loss here? Now, this has happened. It's nothing you could have, you could not have maybe avoided this, and it's entirely beyond your control. So now, again, a flood loss can set you back by a large amount of money at any point in time, unless, of course, if there is a government intervention giving you some money to make good your loss. Now, having said this, flood is again only one situation. There could be inundation. The way the cities are being designed, let's say if there is a flash flood or a cloud burst at any point in time, or it continuously rains for a day or two, there are many parts of cities which gets inundated. Now, this may not have anything to do with a river or a water body, but then this is something which happens suddenly. And flash flood as a scenario is something which is happening more frequently. So as time goes by, you see that the number of such events have increased over time. Now, this is a very real scenario, and unlike a river which drains by itself, inundation is something where the water accumulates and stays there. There is no place for it to drain. You may either have to pump it out or wait for it to seep into the earth. With a lot of concrete, flooring and roads and pavements being done, it becomes difficult for water to seep into the earth as well. So, the longer the water stays, the more the damage it does to your household. Right. Now, so basically, then of course there is this issue of earthquake, which is a bigger event compared to a flood or inundation or a cyclone, which happens on. So flood, EQ, earthquake events are properly documented. We know the earthquake prone zones, like maybe the Himalayan belt, or let's say Bhuj, Kutch, where you have, it is an under seismic zone, highest seismic zone where the probability of an earthquake is highest. Now that doesn't reduce the number of settlements there. There are still houses there, and people stay there, living, the livelihood is there. Now, all these things in terms of, let's say, fire, floods, cyclones, burglary, thefts, earthquakes, these are all things which can be covered in a insurance policy. So the only thing is a person may have to adequately insure for a value, so that for a value which is equivalent to what they actually have in the house, so that in the event of a loss, the insurance company can get into their shoes and make good their loss, so that they are not set back by a huge amount of money when it actually comes to recovering from the damages. So this is what broadly a home insurance covers and should cover, and this is what as an offering is already available in the market with all insurers. And It is maybe up to the larger crowd to come and take up home insurance on a bigger scale, so that they stand protected.
Right. So, Dilip, you very nicely explained different scenarios where home insurance is useful. So, I was coming to my next question. So, is there a standard product available in the market, or there are different types of home insurance products that one can avail?
Yeah, so there is a standard product now. So dwelling, or let's say residence insurance, is something which has always been there in the market. So almost every company has filed this product. Everybody has it. But as of 1st April 2021, IRDA also came up with Digit Bharat Griha Raksha policy, so which is a standard product. Idea behind the product was the terms and conditions product remains standard across insurers, so that customers are not confused, and the scope of cover is also clearly defined, so that in the event of a loss, the market or the industry as such is clear in terms of what is to be settled, how it is to be settled, and how to make good the loss to a customer. So this is today what we have in the market is a standard product.
My next question is that what type of homeowners should be looking at home insurance? Because, like you also in the beginning said, that there are people who live in the cities, who live in multi-storied buildings or societies. There are single houses which people build on their own land. So, is home insurance relevant to people who are living in cities?
No, home insurance is relevant to everybody who owns a house. So it need not be only about owning the house. Even if you're staying in a house, so somebody owning a house would own the building and structures related to it. Somebody, if you are staying in your own owned house, so the building and the structure is yours, plus the contents in the house, including a furniture, home appliances, and everything else. So owner of the house can insure both the structure and the contents. Whereas if you're staying as a tenant, the owner of the building can insure his building for his, to the extent of his, we call it the insurable interest.
Right.
So, because in the event of a claim, that claim will have to go to the person who has the insurable interest.
Right.
And if you're staying as a tenant, like I said, for the contents you have in the house, let's say your clothing, your maybe appliances, furniture, etc., the tenant can take a policy covering all what is his or hers.
So Dilip, like you said, there is also residential building insurance that the homeowner or the residential society overall, etc., can take. So can you explain what all does that cover? And let's say, should someone still go for a home insurance if their residential building already has an insurance policy?
Now, when you say residential building, are you referring to an individual multi-storied building? Yes. So basically, one should, because when you are buying that, let's say, individual house in a multi-storied apartment building, you paid for it. You paid for the structure. You paid for staying there. You've taken possession. So how we should think of is, in the event of a loss or something happening, you will need that money to reinstate your living, maybe there or in another location or in another building. So somebody even staying in a multi-storied building, if he is owning that apartment, individual flat or apartment, he can take a policy covering the structure and its contents.
Okay. So I'll slightly twist this question. So let's say the building you live in doesn't have a residential building insurance, but you, let's say, live on the ground floor or first floor where you feel you're more susceptible to flash floods, etc. So can you still get a home insurance that covers your residence as well as the content?
Yes, so one should basically evaluate his own risks in terms of where his property is.
Right.
Now, if there is a definite risk of something happening in terms of flood or inundation or whatever, anything that could lead to a damage, so he should exercise his right to take an insurance policy. So somebody having that real risk should obviously go for an insurance policy covering the structure or contents, depending on whether he owns it or whether he's staying as a tenant.
Got it. Yeah. So Dilip, you actually know the entire home insurance space in and out, and we have actually discussed in detail the importance of taking a home insurance. But I want to discuss the point of India's home insurance penetration being extremely low. According to you, what are some of the misconceptions people have about home insurance?
So this is largely unfortunate that people have not been taking home insurance, which Like Shabri, you rightly said in the beginning that this is maybe something which is closest to you, where you live in, and this is your building which you have purchased, a lot of life saving going into it. Now, it does not take much to get a home insurance in play. It doesn't cost much. So maybe the feeling that, nothing, so you read on a day-to-day basis in newspapers that, there has been a burglary in that house, or let's say there's a fire there, and, there is a flood hitting some, but somehow people feel that, nothing can happen to my home.
Right, true.
So
that optimism bias kicks in.
Optimism bias kicks in, which is very good. So even though it is good to be optimistic, but then in insurance we believe that you should prepare for the worst.
Right.
So an event like this may not happen very frequently in your lifetime, which hits you. It might hit only once, but then what is the cost you would be paying if you are not adequately insured, or there is no way to recover your losses?
Right.
Yes, the mental agony is something which an insurance company or anyone cannot help you with,
Right.
but at least the financial side of it is something which an insurer can pitch in and help you with.
Got it.
Yeah. And again, another aspect is basically most of the population takes a loan at the time of purchasing a house.
Yeah, true, very true.
Now, along with the loan, it comes with an option of insurance.
Right.
Now, when that happens, people, I believe, could be having this feeling ki, okay, I have an insurance with the home loan, so let me leave it at it.
Right.
Now, some things which an individual who owns a property should evaluate is whether that amount is actually enough. Are you adequately insured?
True. Yeah.
Okay, so the way I see it, somebody may not be taking 100% of the amount in home loan,
Right.
and which is the amount for which the property is insured.
Okay.
It might be 50%, 40%. Now, at any point in time, if you're not adequately insured, that again becomes an issue in the event of a loss. So that what is not insured is something which you will have to pay from your pocket.
Right.
Okay, so one is you should evaluate are you adequately insured? Second is in terms of contents. Now, content is not something which comes along with your home loan insurance cover. That is something which an individual could, add on to his insurance. Okay, I have, this much of contents, and which also I would like to insure, so that he has a full cover at any point in time.
Got it. So my next question, like you said that home insurance is not that expensive. So how expensive or cheap is home insurance? Like I understand that there are a lot of scenarios to consider before a premium is arrived at, but is it possible for you to give a ballpark figure of how much a home insurance can cost?
Yeah, so basically a simple insurance cover for your building structure, which let's say costs around 40 lakhs to build, okay, will cost you around 800 to 1000 rupees a year.
Okay.
So it is as cheap as that. I'm sure most of us would be spending far more than this on so many other aspects in life.
People know that it is this cheap, and that could also be a challenge.
Correct. So it works out to roughly around 30 rupees a lakh for an insurance cover, which is fairly cheap, in terms of getting. And again, it depends on your sum insured. So this is only about the property aspect. So you can go ahead to cover your electronic appliances for breakdown.
Right.
So you might have a situation where your AC keeps breaking down, or your fridge keeps breaking down, your water purifier keeps breaking down, and you're spending money again and again in terms of repairing it.
Right.
Now that is also a coverage you can take under a home insurance package. So property is one aspect. You can cover your appliances for breakdown. You can maybe cover your jewelry. So there are a lot of options in this. So ideally a home package is designed to cater to all the different types of risks which a homeowner has, which is in front of him, which he could face in terms of a loss. So all these are available in a home package. So somebody who is really interested can customize his home insurance portfolio the way he wants it to, or he can simply go for a structure and contents, fire and burglary kind of cover, which could be something relatable to him. So jewelry may not be so very relevant sometimes, because people end up keeping a lot of jewelry in bank lockers and such, and which is true that the risk of jewelry at home is not very high.
Right.
So some people may not want jewelry cover. Some people would want. So daily use jewelry is something which the spouse wears or the children wear. Now this is a very real risk in terms of jewelry on people.
True.
So all this can be customized into a home package, and all options are available in the Indian market today.
Okay. So Dilip, I want to talk about people living on rent, because if you see in a lot of cities, there are a lot of people who move to bigger cities and start living on rent. They also own a lot of home assets. So what are the main things that they should consider if they are taking a home insurance for themselves?
Yeah, so in terms of home assets, if you're referring to a TV or a fridge or an AC, microwave,
Right.
so in your contents fire part of the policy, everything related to your fire, cyclones, we call it STFI, storm, tempest, flood, inundation, or any kind of nature's vagaries, which can, so that definitely gets covered. That is a base cover.
Right.
Along with that, for appliances and equipments, let's say maybe your desktop or any kind of electronic or electrical items, you can cover breakdown and fire, burglary, or all this, any kind of accidental damages to the property. Let's say kids are playing around and by chance, let's say your TV is hit. Now that is something which is sudden and unforeseen, for which nobody is to blame.
True. Yeah.
So such things also gets covered in your home insurance, especially on the appliances front.
Got it. So I'll slightly go off topic, and I want to talk about what is happening in Joshimath. I spoke about it very briefly in the beginning. So I want to know from you cases of land subsidence covered by insurance, and what are some other lesser known perils home insurance covers. While we know that quake, cyclone, floods, etc. are covered, so are there any other lesser known perils like these that are also covered by home insurance?
Yes, so home insurance also comes with a lot of added yes, land subsidence as a direct answer is covered under home insurance. So not only land subsidence, any kind of landslides or land subsidence, all these are nature's vagaries which is beyond the control of the insured. So as an individual who's staying in a house, you may at any point not expect something like this to happen.
Right.
So this, what is beyond your control, is where the insurance comes in. So in case of Joshimath, where there has been this incidence of land subsidence, if homeowners have a policy, the basic Bharat Grah Raksha policy, then land subsidence is a cover which is available in the policy, and the claim would be looked at accordingly.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we have spoken about what all a home insurance covers. So I will leave you by answering this last question, which I think everybody should be aware of too. So what are typically the exclusions in a home insurance plan that people should be aware of?
Okay. Oh, that's a very relevant question. Yes. So I've been speaking till now in lines of what is covered. Yeah. So like any insurance policy for that matter, would not cover anything related to any kind of deliberate damage or something which is a willful negligence or any intentional or pre-existing damages. So that becomes a core of the coverages, and this is something which is an exclusion in most of the property policies. Now, anything related to, let's say, improper handling of contents, the way it is not, let's say a microwave is supposed to be used in a certain manner. Right. And as per manufacturer specification. Now, if it is grossly not used in a way it should be used, let's say you're carrying it around and things like that, because of which there is a loss, then that becomes not payable. So then things like any kind of mysterious disappearance in case of a theft, burglary, loss, or any kind of unexplained losses. So in any kind of a claim, it is always important to submit any kind of circumstantial evidence which has led to that event, which is generally there in most of the claims. So that becomes it becomes important to evaluate that in the event of a claim. So any kind of mysterious disappearance or unexplained losses is something which generally is not paid. And like I said, any improper handling of contents. So any loss or damage due to any war or invasion is an exclusion in most of the insurance policies. Then it goes on to have exclusions related to any kind of nuclear activity, which are broader exclusions. One major thing is insurance would not cover anything related to a kacha construction. So it should not be any temporary structure. Somebody staying in a tent or temporary erected structure is something that is generally not covered. So coverage would generally be for RCC construction, properly built homes, class A kind of construction, which we generally use in building parlance. So in simple words, we call it pakka constructions, between pakka and kacha. So any kind of temporary arrangements or structures are not covered. All pakka class A RCC constructions comes under the purview of cover. So these are broadly the exclusions. So otherwise, in a Griha, the new IDA product, Griha Raksha policy, covers not only your home structure, it covers a home structure plus maybe your compound walls, any kind of retaining walls. If you have dug a well, if you have a car shed which is built in the same compound a little far away, that is covered. If you have solar insulation on the roof, that is covered. So the scope of coverage is very, very good. And so as an individual, you may not have to tell the insurance company specifically in terms of what all is there. So you will have to declare your value correctly and accordingly in terms of reinstating that structure if something happens. And the standard wording, with the wording of course is standard, so that coverage will take effect. So that is how it works. So it's relatively simple to take a home insurance today with the standard product in place.
Got it. So Dilip, this was really an insightful conversation. I'll let you go now because I know that you're very busy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us on the Insuring India podcast.
Thanks, Shabri. Thanks for having me. And I hope the topic of home insurance becomes a drawing room conversation in India. And we are all looking forward to that happening soon.
True. We do hope for the same. We hope you all enjoyed this conversation. And as Dilip said, we do hope the conversation catches on and more people become aware of the importance of home insurance. That's all on this episode, folks. Do subscribe to us to keep getting notified whenever we drop something new. Thank you and see you next time.